Sahu, and I'm a freshman in aerospace engineering.
I'm Connor Medell. I'm also a freshman in aerospace engineering.
So for this project, we had to design, build, and launch a model rocket with a payload of an egg. And one goal of the project is to essentially bring back the egg in a not broken manner. And Connor can talk about the analysis.
Sure, yeah. So our team, we had one very important specific goal that we wanted to accomplish, and that was just getting very good data. So for that, we chose a very good camera, one that may have been heavier and may have impacted our height, but gave us very good video feed. And we also really got some good data with some good graphs and altimeter readings. So we were very pleased with that.
When we were designing our fins and laser cutting them, we didn't know the overall dimensions of the rocket, so we chose a fin size that was fairly small, and as such, we chose to make the length of the rocket longer. So when we were designing the fins, what we did some quick research online, and we found that doing a simple parallelogram design would work just as well as any other geometry. So we chose to do that, and also when it came in terms of dimensions, when we were designing this in CAD, we didn't know the dimensions of the rocket overall. So we unfortunately chose a really small fin dimensions. So I'd recommend if you're going to do this, make sure when you're designing the fins, make sure you know the overall rocket dimensions.
This is the thrust stand data, and you can clearly see at 6 seconds there's ignition, and there's a spike in the graph, and then there is even a greater spike in the graph a little before 10 seconds, and that is the ejection charge going off, separating the payload from the rest of the body and deploying the parachute.
So in this graph of the height versus time, this data which came from the altimeter, we can clearly see how the rocket goes up into the air and reaches its apogee at about 10 seconds, and then after that it comes down at a steady rate. In this graph of the velocity versus the time, which also coincides with the altitude versus time graph, we can see how the rocket is at its maximum velocity at about 2.5 seconds, which is probably when the engine stopped burning. After that, it slowly reached towards its apogee, at which point the velocity is 0, and then it came down at. I should have used the baby powder. After launching our rocket, we found out that the height of the apogee was about 960 meters, and that's a bit higher than the average.
And we think that's due to our design, or our choice to design to use smaller fins. And using smaller fins really reduce the drag and let our rocket fly straight up without being taken by the wind.
So an issue we faced was when the rocket was coming down, the parachute didn't come out properly. It came out all bundled up, and also the strings that attached it to the rocket were getting rolled up as it came down. One possible solution to that might have been using baby powder to loosen up the parachutes.
Although the parachute did not fully deploy, what did deploy did cause a lot of drag and slowed the rocket's descent to the ground, and also the rocket landed on its fins, and both these things together allowed the egg to remain intact.
One thing I learned during the launching of the rockets was that rockets with bigger fins would turn towards the wind, whereas rockets with smaller fins would fly straighter. And we think it's because on these rockets, the center of mass is above the center of pressure, and as the wind is pushing towards the rocket, the fins which were lower on the rocket, which were placed lower on the rocket, and thus the lower center of pressure, they would turn like this, and that would cause them to veer towards the wind, which is kind of an interesting concept.
Something I learned through this whole bit of a project is that I've flown model rockets before, but I've never actually built one. So learning the whole process and everything that goes into a rocket, including the engine, the ejection charge, the way the parachute has to be wrapped correctly and put in there, is all very important. So that was all pretty new to me and a great learning experience.